And we are less than a month from the Iowa caucuses. Republicans in the Hawkeye state will head to the polls to cast their votes, setting the tone for the rest of the busy 2024 campaign cycle. CBS News polling shows former President Donald Trump holds a commanding lead in Iowa. He currently sits in first with 58% of likely caucus voters saying he has their support. Ron DeSantis is in second place with 22%. But in New Hampshire, things are getting a little bit tighter. The latest polling shows former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley just 15 points behind the former president as her support keeps growing there in the Granite State. CBS News senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe joins us now. Ed, New Hampshire and Iowa are the first two states to host the GOP primaries. Nikki Haley has continued gaining support, at least in New Hampshire, to pull off an upset, given what some of the experts are predicting. What's your take on her likelihood of getting closer to former President Trump, even winning that primary, or is that not expected?
Well, for now, she's getting closer. 15 points is pretty good right now at this stage with several weeks to go, as you point out. Part of the reason it's happening is when you look at the attributes attributed to each of these contenders, Nikki Haley and Donald Trump now are both considered prepared for the job of president, but on questions of who's more reasonable or more likable, Nikki Haley prevails. Why is that happening in New Hampshire? You got to remember, part of the reason she's doing better is because in New Hampshire you have Republican voters, of course, participating in the Republican primary, but New Hampshire also opens up its primary to independent voters who may opt to show up on that day and vote. And so they are more actively engaged in the process as the primary season rolls on there in New Hampshire. Whereas in Iowa, which has the caucus, you have to be a registered Republican. And Republicans in Iowa are far more socially conservative and more conservative on other matters as well, which is why we continue to see the former president do better there. But certainly, it's yet another sign that the former South Carolina governor, former UN ambassador, is starting to find support. She's campaigning today in Iowa to see if she can shore up her numbers there. And a reminder that, ultimately the number that matters is come January, and she's headed in the right direction while Florida Governor Ron DeSantis continues to sort of stall and sputter there in New Hampshire and hold on to a second place position in New Hampshire, at least for now. Or in Iowa for now.
In Iowa, yeah. Ed, remind us, at least for the GOP, how good of indicators are New Hampshire and Iowa for what's going to happen at the end of the primaries?
Ultimately, New Hampshire can sometimes be the better gauge. Remember, the recent Iowa caucus winners have included Mike Huckabee, Rick Santorum, Ted Cruz. None of them went on to win the nomination. New Hampshire has a slightly better track record. But ultimately, it's a race for delegates. And at this point in those early contests, former President Trump would come out with more of them. Nikki Haley would come in second should that New Hampshire position hold. And Ron DeSantis and Chris Christie would essentially be fighting for just a handful, if that, of delegates in either state if they're able to break 10% or so. So, he's on his way if these numbers hold up. She certainly is in a competitive position, given the stronger position in New Hampshire, probably better than DeSantis and Christie at this point. But as you've pointed out, long way to go.
And the White House and the Senate have been trying to strike a border deal over the weekend. What's the White House saying about any progress made?
Nothing new so far today, but no update might also signal that things are still in good shape. On Saturday, we know that the White House was briefing Democratic lawmakers, members of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, to keep them abreast of the situation. It still looks like changes to asylum policy, changes to the ability of Border Patrol agents to remove recent arrivals from across the country and send them home are on the table. There's questions about whether the president's own parole authority, or when he can grant temporary status to Haitians or Afghans, others from countries that are facing natural or political disaster, whether that can be tweaked or not. But at this point, Lily, it is looking like any kind of an agreement on the border and immigration stuff specifically might slip into January, which means that massive emergency spending bill the president was seeking that includes tens of billions of dollars in funding for Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, natural disaster relief and whatnot is going to not get passed now until the new year. We'll see.
Not unusual that nothing is agreed on when it comes to immigration on the border. Let's talk about this car that crashed into a Secret Service SUV. We saw the images. I don't know, it made me think, wow, is the president that vulnerable? The fact that he could even react, that there was a camera on him. What does this tell the Secret Service? And what more do we know about the incident? What happened?
We know, in essence, the Secret Service is saying that there was no immediate threat to the president. This was an unrelated incident that occurred, and Wilmington police and the Secret Service have processed the guy. What is striking, as you can see in the video here, is the First Lady got into this SUV first. A few minutes later, there was the president waving, answering a quick question from reporters. And right after he answered the question, you heard the thud. And what he was reacting to and his agents were reacting to, there you go, right there. You can see how they sort of look and then realize, oh, yeah, we got to get him in the SUV where the First Lady already was and get him out of there. The camera then turns in the direction of the accident. This is like sportscasting. And it's that silver gray car there that bumped that SUV that was protecting the motorcade. Turns out the guy appears to have allegedly been driving while intoxicated, and there was no direct or purposeful threat to the president. It's a reminder, though, when he's out and about, as he was last night in his hometown visiting his campaign re-election headquarters, that there is always the chance that something like this happens. It's a good reminder, Lilia, why reporters are always traveling with him to document those incidents just in case.
And you don't get to be just a regular Joe, even if it's Delaware. And
That's
O'Keefe, grateful that you have a monitor there for that play-by-play. Appreciate it.
Take care.